Hello, my name is Dave Krings with Failure Prevention Associates. I'd like to talk with you a little bit today about a history lesson. Vilfredo Pareto was a famous economist and engineer from the late 1800s, and he passed away in 1923. But he was the person who did the research that led to what we call the 80-20 rule, or the things that we are allowed to use now as a tool for Pareto analysis. So, originally the study was applied to wealth distribution. So he spread an equal amount of cash amongst a large group and monitored how they managed their money and where they spent it. And what he found after a period of time was 20% of the people ended up with 80% of the cash at the end of the study, over and over again. And what we found with this 80-20 rule is that it applies to lots of things in nature. Now for us in maintenance and reliability, we might be able to apply that to warehouse inventory, for example. That about 20% of the inventory is used about 80% of the time. So, knowing that this is not really a hard and fast number, it's not perfect down to the decimal place, I think it stands to reason and it feels pretty natural to most people that this kind of lopsided view of things where a small portion of problems, for example, causes most of the pain in your organization can be used to our advantage. And we're trying to find ways to simplify and make your systems work better. And when we can use leverage, like the 80-20 rule, to help us do that, we can get big savings with a small amount of effort. So let me show you a little example of where we might apply that at your plant or facility. Let's say, for example, you have 1,000 pieces of equipment or assets in your organization. Vilfredo Pareto would have been interested to see where the failures were concentrated in that sample of 1,000 assets. And what he would find, if his 80-20 rule stands, is that about 200 of the assets are responsible for 80% of the failures in the plant. So this is 80%, well, it's actually 20% of the full example of 1,000 assets. So if I were a reliability engineer and I knew that 80% of the failures were concentrated inside of this sample set of 200 assets, I would be thinking, I'd rather work on 200 assets than 1,000. But 200 is a pretty tall order. So let's apply Pareto's rule once again to the sample of 200 assets. So if what he found stands true, then 20% of the assets in this sample of 200 are responsible for 80% of the failures inside of that sample. So if we take 20% of 200, we get 40 assets. So if the 80-20 rule still applies, then 80% of the failures are happening inside of this sample set of 40. So 80% of 80% gives us 64%. Now this is a telling thing because 40 assets, if we were to improve their reliability and eliminate all of the unexpected, unplanned downtime on them, would give us, theoretically, a 64% reduction in failures across the sample set of all 1,000 assets. That's a pretty powerful thing. Well, I think we should take another cut and do it one more time. So let's take the 40 assets that are responsible for 64% of the failures and take a 20% sample of it. So now we have 8 pieces of equipment, the 8 bad actors in your organization that are causing what would now work out to be 80% of 64%, which is 51%. Now this is kind of flat out amazing to me that we could work on 8 pieces of equipment in this facility of 1,000 assets and get something on the order of a 51% reduction in failures. Now I'm not going to tell you it's going to be 51.00%, but even if we're in the ballpark and it reduces it by 10%, we're making a huge gain here with a relatively small amount of work. You can use this same application or same use of the 80-20 rule for things like reducing inventory, optimizing PMs, even looking at the efficiency of your maintenance technicians. So I would encourage you to take another look at Pareto analysis and the 80-20 rule to narrow down your list to say 8 to 10 bad actors that you can work on that are causing most of your pain. And in short order, as you eliminate those failures, you're going to see a big drop in failures and lots more room to do more things to increase reliability. And you can keep renewing this list because there are always going to be 8 more that are at the top. Well, thanks for listening and have a good day.